Welcome to American Ancestry Decoded. My name is Travis, your host. The topic is Indian Yankees in Action, an example of cultural erasure. What this is, I'm not presenting to you a theory or just a opinion. I'm presenting you a forensic analysis. What I'm presenting comes directly from my reading of county histories, land surveys, boundary testimonies, revolutionary official records, and 19th century administrative documents. This is a case-based forensic report showing how Indigenous Americans in the Hudson Valley were not exterminated, but reclassified, and how the word Yankee itself functioned as their paper trail of that process. So this is not a story about disappearance. It is a story about administrative erasure carried out through language, law, and record keeping, while the people remained on the land. Let's look at what Yankee meant in the record. In early colonial usage, Yankee does not mean white and does not refer to Europeans. In 17th and early 18th century context, it is applied to indigenous people and mixed heritage populations who had converted and were using the English system of law, in particular property law, as well as coming under church governments and other cultural indicators. The term itself derives from the Algonquin root meaning for foreigner or outsider. More precisely, though, it's about one who has crossed into another civilizational system. In other words, foreigner is not the same as ally. So Yankee originally functioned as a conversion and status category, not a racial one. Only later was this term deliberately inverted and retroactively whitened and stripped of its indigenous connection. Now let's talk about a real example from the Hudson River, Marangamus. In the Hudson Valley record, we encounter a Marangamus whose name, with spelling variations, appears across more than 70 years of colonial record documentation. This persistence indicates not a single individual, but a political office, a position of authority among the Indians of the Hudson River Valley, a recognized custodian, recognized by the European corporations of a boundary memory. And we find this testimony in colonial courts repeatedly. He's required to notarize in order to activate the speculative land patents of the European bankers. Marangamus is recorded in deeds defining the following patents: Wawayanda, Chescox, Kakiat, and the Hardenberg patents. Many of these patents sat dormant for decades until indigenous testimony rendered them enforceable in English law and courts. Colonial property systems depended on indigenous authority at this stage. I'm telling you about the 1750s. They could not operate without the authority and the power of men like Indigenous Chief Marangamus. Let's talk about the castle at Schunemunk. The seat of Marangamus' authority is located at Schunemunk Mountain, often recorded in early sources as Shkonamuk. 19th century writers repeatedly refer to this site as a castle. Europeans did not use this term castle lightly. It denotes some form of permanence, stone, defensive logic, and of course command and control of the nearby terrain. Schunemunk happens to overlook Storm King Mountain. Storm King would also be rendered Baal, the god of the Canaanites. The Hudson River choke point and its interior supply corridors of that area are perfectly managed by Schunemunk and Storm King. As the Europeans came over, they did not need to learn where the powerful positions were. They simply found them in custodianship changed hands. Now let's talk about the linguistic games. As indigenous authority becomes inconvenient to acknowledge in later years, later settler accounts downgrade this exact same Scunnamunk castle site, referring to it dismissively in the mid-1800s as Marangamus' wigwam, or an Indian village. This is not the identification of a different settlement. It's literally an intentional linguistic downgrade of the same ancient place by your new Protestant county historians. The language performs erasure before Congress completes it. A fortified administrative center becomes folklore. Let's talk Joseph Brandt, Dayandanega. The next phase in the record is represented by Chief Joseph Brandt, known by his Mohawk name, Dayandanega. And Brandt is Mohawk by birth, yet educated at Moore's Indian Charity School in Connecticut. Part of the hostage system I've revealed. And that institution later became Ivy League Dartmouth College. That school was explicitly created to re-educate indigenous elite children for Christian conversion and imperial service. Brandt is not erased. They didn't kill him. They converted him, credentialed him, and deployed him. And he worked on behalf of the British. And so after the Revolutionary War, along with other Six Nations British loyalists, he was formally compensated by the British Crown with approximately 700,000 acres of prime real estate along the Grand River in Upper Canada, present-day Ontario. This wasn't mercy or charity. It was elite reassignment and compensation under British colonial rules. Brandt was an Indian Yankee. Indigenous authority absorbed and redeployed, not annihilated and destroyed. There's no genocide in this Hudson River corridor. The Revolutionary War resulted in approximately 20,000 to 25,000 total deaths, many of them Europeans and German Hessian auxiliaries. There is no demographic evidence of mass indigenous extermination in the Hudson River corridor during this period. What disappears from the record is not the indigenous population. It is the category under which that population is recognized. Let's fast forward to Henry Page, 1858, a real New York Yankee. By 1858, an Orange County survey records a Henry Page with his Mary Gaines living at the former seat of Marangamus' indigenous authority, the same site earlier described as his castle, yet later downgraded to a wigwam village. They never put together the wigwam serves one purpose, the castle another. The land did not move. The description did. In 1858, Henry Page is designated as colored. He's the owner, and there's no manumission record, no plantation context, and no mention of African importation. Just New York, Orange County, 1858, colored man named Henry Page with a woman named Mary Gaines on their property. Henry Page is a Yankee. He is a part of the working and middle class of the North that everybody at the time recognized clearly. What has changed is not even the people or the place. What has changed is the naming and the framing. If this report raises questions for you, consider joining the community at American Ancestry Decoded with free or paid memberships where you can read my growing archive of investigations. If you want a deeper analysis of this erasure of the real meaning of Yankee, consider purchasing my 49-page investigation at the site. This report delivers a hammer blow to the conventional whitewashed cultural hijack of the definition and importance of the word Yankee. Thank you for listening. I am honored. Remembrance conquers oblivion. Good day.